Welcome to In the Funnel. My name is Mark Cox. In the Funnel is a group of sales coaches and consultants that help B2B sales teams dramatically improve revenue. Clients come to us when revenue growth has stagnated, or their sales team is not meeting expectations, or they need to recalibrate their sales and go-to-market plan for the upcoming year. Our clients have enjoyed tremendous success working within the funnel, and please hear it straight from them by listening to the testimonial section of this website. What they'll tell you is there's two things that make us unique and different in our space. Number one, we have a process and a methodology. First, for understanding your current state, and then second, for building your sales and go-to-market plan for the upcoming year. The second thing that makes us unique and different is that everybody within the funnel has run a material sales organization in their recent past. We're all practitioners. We don't have any theorists or teachers, and what that means is we can get in front of your sales team and run the next sales meeting, or join them on their next sales call to close your next large prospect. All of us have a passion for professional, disciplined, process-driven sales, and we'd be delighted to talk to you if you're looking to grow revenue for your company. Please feel free to reach out to us through this website at info@inthefunnel.com or by telephone. Thanks for taking the time to watch this.
As I jumped into my doctorate, the doctorate really discovered, I created a new model, which will come out in a later book as well, on leadership. And I touched just a little bit on the importance of transformational leadership versus transactional leadership. And what you said, Mark, is so important, because if I look over the spectrum of leaders and the different leadership styles, there are those who lack that empathy ability and just think, well, this is the process. I'm leading. You should follow what I'm doing. When truthfully, if you function and work and adopt the transformational leadership theory, it's harder, but you're working alongside the employee. You take your jacket off first. You sit down with them. You utilize coaching as your main tool of choice and your main tool to leverage development, growth, understanding, and facilitate meeting. Then you are a truly different type of leader, and people will follow you. Mm-hmm. And that's where people grow. And at the end of the day, what do you want to leave behind? Do you want to leave behind, great, we hit all of our numbers? Or do you want to leave behind, wow, not only did we hit our numbers, we transformed and elevated 62 people promoted in these different positions, are going in different ways and directions in the company, and lives have changed. I choose the latter. But it's a choice, right, of what we'd like to do.
Hey, David, Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you, Mark. Same to you. New year, new resolutions.
You want to share any of those resolutions?
Trying to lose my holiday pounds from 2006. How's that sound?
Well, I don't think you need to do much in that area, but there you go. What do? You just pull out the same resolutions every year and underline them, use a different highlighter?
Absolutely, yeah. What about yourself, Mark? Anything for this year?
You know what? I'm really big on goals and objectives, Dave, but I don't end up doing it usually on an annual basis, except for the company. So I'm always kind of almost on a quarterly basis taking a look at things. But yeah, I end up doing kind of 4 or 5 categories of things where I want to set some goals and objectives. So it might be professional with the business, and there'd be numbers in there and that kind of stuff. It might be personal with fitness. So a couple things, I want to break a 6-minute mile, be able to run 1 6-minute mile, which is pretty fast on a treadmill, and some weight objectives and some lifting objectives. And then, I also want to make sure we get 4, vacations in this year, Donna and I. So we were really lucky last year. We got 4 in almost by accident, or 3 in, and I got kind of a 4th on my own. But I want to make sure we do 4 vacations and just book them in now and just make them happen. So those are some of the things I'm looking at for this year. Mostly, I just want to have fun.
Yeah, that's it for sure. But that sort of leads us into who we're going to be meeting today. which is all about change management. A lot of the tools that he has is about how, and that has to do with goals. And sometimes it's great to say that I want to lose my holiday pounds since 2006. But if I don't have that framework to hold myself accountable and to understand the reason why, then chances are I'll be here next year trying to lose my holiday pounds from 2006 again.
Yeah, and by the way, everybody knows you're extremely driven. You're focused, and you only have to look at your Peloton stats to know you go crazy on lots of things with your swimming as well. So today, folks, we're talking to Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich. And what else are you excited about speaking to Grant about, David? So he's Global Director of Sales Transformation at Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. He's also founder of the Scared So What program, and that's where you're going to get to your sales transformation. I'm really excited to talk to him because he's a doctor of professional studies in sales transformation. Easy for me to say. He's a doctor of professional studies in sales transformation. So he's got great academic credentials in professional sales from the UK through Consalia. But that's why I'm really excited. I'd like to learn a lot about his academic credentials and how he's applying it to his new book. How about you? What are you excited to speak about today?
Well, I mean, when I was doing my research, getting ready for this, Mark, I noticed that he's got a lot of great tools on his website, including a way that you can identify where you could have some fear or you could be scared. And then he's got a rather comprehensive worksheet that you can go through to actually help you methodically get to where you want to go with your transformation. I also understand too, he has a new book coming out in March of this year, and it's directed at sales managers. So again, I think you and I have spoken about many times that this is sort of a space in the sales book world that doesn't often get addressed. So I'm curious to hear what he has to say about his book and how it could relate to somebody like me or to yourself.
Right. And thanks, David. That book is Transforming Sales Management, Leading Sales Teams Through Change. Leading Sales Teams Through Change. And anybody who's in sales management today knows the change is never ending. It's been that way probably for 15 years. So 15 to 20 in my view. So really, I think if you're in sales management today and trying to manage your team through change, at some point in time, there's this almost fatigue that kind of sets in where the sales team is just tired of hearing about the next thing that's changing or the next alteration. And so helping to manage people through this in a positive way, I think is really important. Hey, I'm really excited for today's conversation. I'm really excited to speak to Grant. Let's get at it, right, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. Let's do it.
Here we go. Hey, Grant, welcome to the Selling Well podcast, and thanks so much for joining us here today.
Mark, it's my honor. Thanks so much for allowing me to be with you today. I hope you're doing well.
We're doing super well. This is the first podcast of the new year. We're recording this January 2nd of 2023. So we have energy, we have enthusiasm, we're ready for change. And we're joined by my partner in crime here, David Fauser, who runs a sales organization of 150 people. So he's always such a great sort of second set of eyes on some of the things we talk about here, Grant, because he lives this each and every day. And Happy New Year to you, David Fauser.
Happy New Year, Mark, and pleased to meet you, Grant. And I'm really excited about today and excited about the new year.
Likewise. Let's see what we can share with each other.
So Grant, I was super excited to chat today because one of the things I'm always focused on is research, education in professional sales. I believe it's a profession. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons we're in the state we're in these days is it's really not globally accepted with, formal training at the university and college level typically. However, it is in certain areas, and you're a doctor of professional studies in sales transformation. Tell us a little bit about your academic background in the UK.
Absolutely, and thanks so much. You're absolutely right. The profession of sales is just that. It is a profession. It is a career path. And if you think like in human resources, IT, operations, accounting, finance, etc., you can go and get your master's all the way up through your higher education degrees in those areas and many more. But why not sales? Right. It really has never been professionalized until now. And my journey started in 2018 when I was brought over to Europe to really create a sales manual. The first one in our company's 50-year plus history. Believe it or not, just didn't exist. Even though we have salespeople all over the world, we've hired the best, we've trained the best, we believe that we had the best training. But when we really dug down to it, it was a lot of 1980s consultative tips and tricks and how to manipulate. And it's just yesteryear. And as you all know, we've transformed and we've moved on to selling. And an executive coach that I had said, you should try something new before you go write a sales manual.
Nice.
There's a new Masters in Science program. There's actually three of them, but the top one is Leading Sales Transformation. And in there, I think you'll get a great introduction to the sales science and the sales psychology behind modern sales that has been brought together for research from corporations all over the globe. So it's truly transformational. I think you should start there. And so I did. And out of that, I'm a career, lifelong salesperson, and I just thought I knew it. Even though, we continue to learn each and every day, I thought that I understood the foundational principles behind sales and selling. Boy, was I wrong. I was really wrong. I was in for a huge surprise when I started to learn how so much change is involved, how the psychology and the behaviors of people, how people want to be sold to versus the behaviors of the sales professionals that are out there, to my own sales professionals within my own teams, and what have we taught them, and what could we teach them in the future. And so we just went on the journey through the Sales Masters. It was a work-based program. It's through Consalia Sales Business School here in London. And in partnership, it's accredited through the Middlesex University. You got the book, exactly. My mentor, Dr. Philip Squire. I love that book. And a little teaser, Royal Caribbean's inside that book as well, too.
They sure are.
Yeah, we've been great partners with Consalia. You too, David.
I love this book. Yeah, I just finished it last week.
There's hope. There's hope for my book as well too. Maybe two people will have it.
Oh, you got two orders coming your way for sure. But
wonderful.
Yep. Grant, we've had Philip Squire on the show.
Excellent.
Just a great guy.
He's incredible.
And again, naturally attracted to the academic approach to sales, because it is a profession. So there should be, formal certification and training, and then ongoing training to maintain that certification, just like an accountant or a lawyer.
Absolutely.
Or a medical professional.
And you're so right, Mark. And that's where we thought, okay, and I've done a little research on you and your programs as well, too. And I'm thoroughly pleased to say we're 100% aligned.
Oh,
you do not just do one training and you're done. I actually, with the advent of the Sales Academy here at Royal Caribbean International, it's sales education. So I'm throwing away training, just because the connotations behind that are, I'm going to teach you something one time and you're done and you're going to apply it and you'll be wonderful. When the truth is just not there.
Right.
There's no evidence that showcases that actually facilitates and happens. And so then how do you manage to keep embedding it within the culture and within the skill sets of the sales professionals? That's where we partnered with the Institute of Sales Professionals. I'm actually a founding fellow. It was the ASP before, the Association of Professional Sales, but we rebranded it to the Institute when we merged over. And we actually hold our sales professionals accountable to further continued professional development and education. And in doing so, they have the CPD programs. They also have to pass the ethics exams so they can be sales ethically accredited and registered. And that truly sets you apart from any other sales profession within any industry you're in. And they have to maintain that accreditation.
What a great, so many great things to unpack there. And I do want to go back, guys, please don't let me forget. I want to go back and understand a little more about that education. But the ethics in sales, what a smart thing to bring up as part of this. And I'll remember going back into the history. I did an executive MBA, let's say 15 years ago. And at that point in time, there was an enormous amount of bad behavior going on at the corporate level. If you think of that time frame, 2005, 2008, that was around Enron and around a bunch of other things. And there were business schools trying to think about, how do we make sure we're not seeding the market with more of this behavior? And they literally put into our graduation ceremony this thing called the ring ceremony. where, like an engineer, when you graduate from this business school, you actually get a ring. But the
Amazing.
idea was, it was all around ethics and doing the right thing, and, appropriate behavior, and making that commitment, not just, to your business, but to the school, et cetera, et cetera. But first of all, if I could just call out and compliment for what it's worth, how many of us, if asked to write a sales manual for our business, would have done what you did, which is, instead of just sitting down and writing everything I know, because I think I'm so good at this and I'm the Wayne Gretzky of sales, I'm actually going to think about how to do this, and maybe I'm going to go get some additional education to help me. What a fantastic move. And
Thank you.
that just
It was wrought with fear. I'll be honest with you. It was absolutely wrought with fear. And I had wonderful supervisory support and an external executive coach that said, Grant, you can do this. You're in your mid 40s at that time, but you can definitely go back to school and you can do this. And if you're going to do something, you might as well do it right. What
great coaching. What were you afraid of? By the way, you say it was wrought with fear. Mm-hmm. What were you thinking about? Because I think a lot of us out there deal with different levels of fear or a bit of anxiety about different things, jumping outside our comfort zone. Mm-hmm. What was worrying you about going to get further education?
I came from a military family. I'm Midwest born and raised, state of Kansas, and a lot of us follow the career paths of our fathers and brothers, and we went into the military. So I'm a product of the U.S. Navy. And when you go that route, it's not often that you think, okay, you can then also go back and do university after the military. Mm-hmm. It's typically either one or the other. And as you go throughout your life and your work path and your career path post-military, it's more ingrained into you that, you're not going to go to university, and you have to then learn how to sell your own skill sets and your own experiences as of 4 years in the U.S. military. Well, what does that mean? People say you have to have a master's or an MBA, etc. Well, my mom used to always tell me, well, you do. And it was called the United States Navy, 4 years of hard work. Yeah. Write that on your resume. And so it was hard to overcome. And there are countless veterans out there who deal with this every single day. Yeah. And we just second guess ourselves. Are we smart enough? Can we do it? Can we go through it? Will we be successful? Will we be exposed for our weaknesses? In actuality, my executive coach, Mr. Brian Tilley from the Leaf Solution here in London, he was just a wealth of knowledge. He said, Grant, let me introduce you to Dr. Philip Squire first. You're going to meet him, and he's going to tell you, I already know he's going to tell you, he's going to say that people who come from military service, we actually do better because they do not have the preconceived notions of university before. So we don't have to unteach them what they've already learned. And their minds as military veterans are typically more open. And I proved that theory right when I graduated with a distinction.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
And then, I'll throw it over to Dave, but I went through the exact same trepidation before deciding to do an executive MBA back in the 2000s, 2005, around there. And you did it while you were working.
Yes.
So you were working, but then you added this on top. And then the trepidation is, what if I fail?
Well, yeah. Well, and add on to that, Mark, I was the first in the entire hospitality industry to go into this.
Wow.
So I thought the exposure and the pressure is real. So the military was one side. The pressure of being the first at anything, as you know, is very heavy and very difficult. But once I had passed the master's program and built the sales academy, and somebody waved a little carrot in my face and said, you realize you could be the first doctor if you're willing to go, keep on. And I said, oh, don't do that to me. But I did it. Yeah.
Good for you. Well, it's amazing how it would open up also your growth mindset.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's the thing for everybody listening here today. We all go through the same thing when we're taking on a new challenge. You commit to it. You don't know if you can get through it, but once you're committed, you're in.
Yes.
And so we're all amazing. We all have this amazing potential that once we jump in, we'll figure it out. As long as we get comfortable with things like pain,
Mm-hmm.
hard work,
Change.
change, uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I've certainly don't like and I have had to adapt to. But all of those things, once you start to absorb those and go, we'll all figure it out. It changed. That literally changed my life and kind of re-triggered almost a high school level of growth orientation. When I did my MBA when I was in my low 30s or mid 30s. And up to that point in time, I was kind of set and doing pretty well and thinking that people were learning from me.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what a wake-up call to
I
realize.
echo that as well.
What a wake-up call to realize there's a universe of things I don't understand. And the more I learn, the more I realized I don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, by the way, the whole thing was pure joy. It just triggered growth orientation in almost every aspect of my life.
And that's exactly, gosh, we're so similar, Mark. I look forward to a rest of our lifetime of friendship with you and Dave.
Absolutely, yeah.
But we're so similar. I felt the exact same things, and it wasn't until I got to the end of the master's in sales, and since it was work-based, I was applying everything I learned directly into my career path. So it was all live, active learning, and I'm testing. My research pool were my employees. And our to an extent also to our B2B customers as well, who we invited in to participate with us. But then you get excited about it and you thought, well, wait a minute, just because I'm older doesn't mean I can't learn, and doesn't mean that I can't effectively change and transform and share the learning with others. And that really gave me the catalyst to say, I can do the doctorate and I can move forward.
Well, it's one of the reasons I'm so pleased to have David Fauser join us here today is I actually think there's a huge issue, David, in sales management today. And I think one of the core issues out there is I actually think the job is set up to be almost impossible. I'll explain why. But in addition to that, most sales leaders out there don't look for any form of outside help because they're afraid it exposes them for not being all things to all people. And so when we think of, David and I are real hockey fans, Grant, obviously based on living north of the border here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But you think of a hockey coach and he's got people who are at the peak of the capability, the best in the world are sitting in front of them at playing hockey. And he's got a team of fitness coaches, mindset coaches, nutrition coaches, shooting coaches, skating coaches, strength coaches.
Yeah.
He or she does not have to be the only person providing everything to the sales team. But one of the reasons David Fauser and I clicked so much was he's a sales leader running a 150 person sales organization, but was very comfortable looking for outside help and support, whereas most sales leaders aren't. Tell me a little bit about that on your end, David Fauser. Why did you originally come and look for some help with us? And how did you get comfortable that it wasn't exposing you as having some form of weakness or some problem with what your leadership?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good point, Mark. I mean, I was a Tiger Woods fan back in the day, and I always thought, well, he's the best golfer in the world. Why does he need a coach, right? And I think that just allowing yourself to be a little bit vulnerable, like Grant, like his story really spoke to me, because I think when you talk about the issues with sales management and being vulnerable enough to ask for help, I think a lot, and then also thinking that you know everything already, right? So I think that that's sort of one of the things, is to allow yourself to open up to say, well, maybe there is a different way to do this, and maybe there are different things you can do. And that's what I really like, Grant, about one of your tools that you have on your website, is you have this tool that helps you identify maybe some of areas where you could have an open mind to maybe some change. And then you've got a very sophisticated, I'm very impressed by your sophisticated tool with actually being able to give you a step-by-step roadmap to exactly from start to finish, which I think is just fantastic. Could you maybe tell me a little bit more about that tool, and maybe how somebody who is a sales manager who may need to open their mind could value from something like that?
Absolutely, I can, David. And to both of you, I just want to say before I go there, You're spot on, Mark. Just yesterday, as I was perusing, I'm a heavy fan of LinkedIn. I use it a lot for social engaging with other
Yes.
professionals around the world, yourselves as well. This is how we met. I saw a post from a leading sales group that did a poll. How many sales professionals read books? And I clicked on it. It says, do you read books? Do you read sales books to further your education? And I clicked, well, of course, I'm doctor in sales. Of course I have to. So I clicked yes. And it was only 23% had clicked yes. The rest of it was no. And it was just shocking to myself.
Isn't it?
You don't even read what's out there and what's available to you. But just a point of why education is so important if we're going to continue to evolve and get past those. I often say it within the organization. We've got to get past the 1980s tips and tricks to manipulate and to overcome people's objections. People have moved on. They don't want that. We're living in a democracy now. People are buying based off emotions and things that they can identify with. So I thought that was important. But David, to your point, yes, in the master's program, leading sales transformation means you have to learn about mastering change and change management as well if you're going to be continue to be a successful leader in sales and leader in enterprise. And that means you must understand change management and how to put it through. But when I was learning about the global change models that are out there, and there's quite a few, I focused in the top 8. The funny thing is that when I did my literature reviews and research, there was not one single book that said, here they are. They were all independent of themselves across the world and written intentionally. So number one, it was very hard to find out how to manage change from different viewpoints around the world. But when I did get through learning about them, I went to Dr. Philip Squire, who was my professor, and I said, these don't work for me. And he thought, oh God, have I failed this student? What happened? And he looked at me and said, Grant, what don't you understand? And I said, I understand the models brilliantly, but these are designed for organizations to utilize on their people. Nowhere in here does it say how to include the people. And if you look at all of the models, they'll say they might be shocked, they might be angry, they might be upset, but they're magically at the end going to accept change. And I just said, that's just not true. And that was dangerous to sit. I'm in a cohort, of 10 other global sales leaders from around the world and, Dr. Squire, et cetera. And they're like, what is this American thinking? And I just told him, I said, listen, do you guys believe that the individual has the right to accept or reject change? Yes. These models don't show that. Okay, well then. And Dr. Phil said, well, then you need to make your own. And that's what I did. So that's when I built, to your point, David, that you said the model. It's available for everyone for free. We'll give you the resource so you can see it. But it's focused out of deep research and science on how people think and process change and change management for themselves. And it's the first global model called Scared So What. It's designed for the individual to be able to process and think about change and embrace it. What I'm saying is, I don't want you to assume or make assumptions, and I don't want you to be fearful of change. I want you to embrace it and make an informed decision about it. And as a sales leader, David, yourself, myself, Mark, if I'm a leader of other people around the world and I'm implementing change in sales, which is every day and every week, I want to know who is my change adopter and who is my change detractor. And the current global models don't allow for that. Scared So What does. And it takes it where every other model stops. It says, right, now that you've made a decision, what's your so what? So what will you do about it? What's your strategy? What's your options and opportunities? What's your way forward? This can be an individual action, or this can be a team action. This can be led by yourself as a sales leader. I can now become a coach, a sales coach, using Scared So What by facilitating the conversation with my sales employees. And now I have a better opportunity to bring people along the change pathway. And that's how you lead sales transformation and sales change.
And let's talk a little more about that, guys, because, you've probably seen the research as well as I have, Grant. Every year, whether it's CSO Insights or whether it's McKinsey or whether it's Gardner, they end up going to about 3,000 different sales leaders in the U.S. And they ask about some of the priorities and the issues and the challenges and all those kinds of good things. And every year, one of the top issues is the pace of change.
Yeah.
So there, I think maybe 20 years ago, there had been this thing where we started to make changes within the sales organization after being a little stagnant for a while. And it's just been relentless ever since then. And they can't keep up. And then boom, COVID hits, boom, 8 to 10% inflation hits.
Yeah.
What's taking place within an enterprise to stay nimble, to succeed, is never ending in terms of that change. It always translates to the sales organization because they're on the front line. So as we're kicking off a year, undoubtedly, David has lots of change that he has to roll out with his team of 150 people. Let's talk through that. Scared, so what? Let's talk through that model. What does he do?
Yeah. The first thing is not to be shy about the change process that's happening with people. You've got to get your sales team, or anybody, this applies to anybody in any business throughout the world, but as I'm a global sales leader, and that's what my academy is in, that's what I put it in my research as well too. But know this, it does extend well beyond sales. But what you're trying to do is you want to break the years tradition of how to resist change. Now, let me just preface this for a moment. So David and Mark, have you ever had a parent, someone that you looked up to, a relative, a teacher, a professor, anybody, and whenever you went to them about a fearful situation and said, I don't know what to do, I'm scared of this, or I don't understand it, and they said, oh, Mark, don't worry about it. David, you're going to be just fine. It'll be okay. Or have your employees, your sales employees, ever come to you? Hey, boss, I don't know what to do here. Oh, don't worry. It's going to be fine. We're going to give you all the tools. Don't stress.
Yeah, it doesn't make you feel better at all.
Exactly. My point exactly. It never makes you feel better. And why is that? Because we have never been taught how to manage personal change. Until today, all of the change models are designed for organizational change, aside for Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who invented her change curve, which was on a specific moment in your life, which is death and dying. We're not there. So that's later on in life. Let's not worry about that for today. But what is common with Dr. Kubler-Ross, I did an interview with her son, Ken Ross, who is the president and CEO of the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Foundation. And where in my research with developing Scared So What, he said, what you're trying to do is what my mother, Dr. Elizabeth Ross, was trying to do. And that is to facilitate a conversation. Too many people shy away from the conversation. And that's what Scared So What does. It's two parts. Scared is talking about feelings. It is, what are you feeling? So I could very easily coach you using Scared. You could download the quiz and take the quiz for yourself and visually see how you're feeling. Or as a supervisor, I could coach you on it. Little example, David, are you surprised about the situation you're in? Do you champion it, or are you conflicted about it? What actions have you done? Are you receptive, or are you rejective to what's happening? Could you explore any other options? And what decision have you made? Now,
this is all, Grant, this is all the questions that the individual's thinking through, or are these the questions that the leader's thinking through? Both. Both,
yeah. So it's designed to be an individual tool, and that's how you roll it out. But then as a supervisor, you're also there to be their coach and champion them. Now, coaching, you have to really understand, what is coaching? Is it disguised with advice or mentorship? No, it's asking open-ended questions to the sales member.
Yeah.
And so that's where Scared comes along so well to say, are you surprised? What is your surprise level? Are you conflicted? Are you championing this? What actions could you take? You're the coach, so you're facilitating the conversation. So to your point, Mark, it can be used in dual ways. And in my research, 100% of over 200 sales leaders across the world, from Russia all the way to Latin Caribbean, they all said, 100% said that it could be used as a coaching tool as well too.
Well, and thank you, by the way. So there's a good note there. And folks, a lot of what we're talking about, Grant, I'm assuming this is in your upcoming book, Transforming Sales Management, Leading Sales Teams Through Change. So release date on that one again?
It's May. So May 3rd for the UK, May 30th through the United States and North America.
So those Canadians listening, May 2-4 weekend, get your copy and you can maybe get just a 12-pack of beer, save the additional money, and just instead of drinking a 2-4, just drink 12, and we've got the book.
There you go.
Yeah, a lot of beer drinking in Canada. Sorry about that, Grant. But back to this. So I think this is an interesting one because as someone running large sales organizations today, or even small ones as a sales leader, there are changes taking place that you didn't decide on.
Absolutely.
So we'll just pick an easy one. Let's pick the easiest one that we could come up with. Let's say that David's got a team. This is not happening, by the way, but let's say I'll pick somebody else. Let's say I'm running a team today and we're dramatically changing the compensation model.
Yeah.
Okay. So something's happened. We're dealing with margin issues. We're dealing with 8 to 10% inflation. I've got to dramatically change the compensation model.
Absolutely.
First of all, as a CRO, I'm going to be at my executive team table wrestling this around. But as soon as that decision gets made, no matter what, I sort of tried to do, I got to get on board with it. That would be my, once the executive team makes a decision, we can wrestle it around in the room, but once we decide on something, that's what we're doing. So now I got to take this and roll this out to the team.
Yeah.
And one of the things we're going to face for sure in that type of change might be anger. So for, we're trying to explain it. And so as the individual tries to process it, there's a functional reality that says, whatever your reaction is, this is not going to change anyway.
Yeah.
How do we help them through that?
I love that scenario because it's one I actually lived through during the pandemic. And if you know anything about the industry, the cruise industry, we completely shut down.
Right.
Completely shut down for almost 2 years. A multi-billion-dollar business we are to absolutely zero in revenue. And what did that mean? That meant that we had to reorganize our entire global sales force. And I at the same time, I was about ready to lose my job as well, too. So as I closed out the international offices over here in Spain, where I was working, I got on the last flight to fly to the United States, prepared to lose my job as well, too.
Wow.
But using Scared So What on the plane, which is what you read about as I opened the book, I came to the harsh realization, wait a minute, I'm flying into a trap. I'm going to lose my job and there are no job protections. How do I move forward with this? And I used Scared So What and I built my own So What plan. So when I landed and the next few days I met with my brand new supervisor, he sure enough gave me the information. He said, you've got about 6 months. And if you want to leave earlier, you can. We'll give you your full package, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, wait a minute. I don't think you need me to leave. Let me ask you this. When have you ever had the opportunity to reset your entire international sales force?
Wow.
Yeah.
When have you ever had the opportunity to align every single job position, job role, job function, and also sales compensation to make it align fully and wholly globally? And he's like, never. And I said, and when have you ever been able to launch the sales academy for your international teams? Never. And I said, you need me to stay on board. And so we did. And so this is real. The scenario you gave is very real for me and very, very, a very live example of what we did. Now, we could have used any of the top global organizational change models, which is what companies typically do. They'll take the McKinsey 7, they'll take Cotter's change model, they'll take the Sarah or Kurt, they'll take any of them, and sometimes multiple of them, and try to apply them together. But again, the key mistake is you're not including the employee on the journey. So David, in that scenario, let's say Mark just said it, the executive committee says we have to realign the international sales compensation structure. Great, the decision has been made, but it has not been communicated to the employees as of yet. What you do is you first then announce it into an open discussion with the employees, and you utilize Scared So What first. At the first communication, you're not trying to instill the program. You're trying to instill the communication plan and bring the employees in on the journey. You want to find out who accepts this change or who rejects this change. And what for the people who accept it, you want them to become change adopters, and you want to empower them to help spread the message of goodwill. And for those who do not accept the change, you want to then focus with coaching to find out what information do they need? What do they need? What actions need to happen? What further information needs to come along so that they can get on board? Now you're working much smarter. You're working alongside the individuals, allowing them to participate in the change, and that you get them to make an informed decision. Once they've done that, then you can either individually and or collectively, you'd be smarter to do as a collective, have people working together. What's our so what plan? You're going to lead it, but what's our so what? What's our strategy? What are our options? What's our way forward? Do we have hope and know if it will work? What actions will we take? And finally, how will we take ownership ourselves? And then that's when you come in and put the organizational change model on top. This is how we're going to do it together. I've got everybody on board in one way, shape, or another. Now, naturally, a couple people are probably going to leave, and that's okay. But it's much better that it be 2 or 3 people versus 10 or 12 people because they didn't have the information, because we didn't attack the fear, because we didn't bring them along with the journey. That's what Scared So What does. It ties the individual aspect of change, so then you can come in and put the organizational aspects and execute. You have to do both.
Yeah, had I not seen your quiz and your, the sheet to work through it, I wouldn't have really believed you with your story about coming back on the plane. But knowing that, seeing what you did, like, it really spoke to me personally as a sales leader. And what I really took from this conversation, Grant, was using that for a coaching scenario as well too.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it really does. I'm actually, was excited about your book, but now I'm really excited about it, actually, to be honest with you. I'm really excited to get my hands on it, because I think that this is a real problem. And I'm thrilled actually that you've been able to address a change model that is more encompassing, especially focused on the sales organization. So really, thank you for that. Really excited.
No, my pleasure, and thank you. And as a leader, the reason I gear this towards sales leadership is because I purposely put, this is the first book in the world to have the top 8 global change models, organizational change models, in one place, so that you as a leader don't have to go all over the library. You've got it in one trusted source. Then I go into why the individuals are so critical and important to your change success. And then I go into how to do that by introducing Scared So What to you. And then I apply that with real world case studies of sales examples like I've just shared with you, the real evidence of how we played it out with our people around the world, and also with our customers, our B2B customers. During the pandemic, we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of travel agents across the world that were losing their jobs and their livelihoods as well too.
Yeah.
We rolled out Scared So What to them here in the international from Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And we had travel agents saying, I'm using this with my kids. They get the change better than I do. Now the whole family's in and involved on it. And then again, that goes back to my earlier conversation in the beginning. Has anybody ever taught you how to manage change? No. Imagine what we could do if we could get this skill set to everybody. You think the school bully who doesn't know how to process change. You think the sales employee who doesn't understand where your alignment or where your direction is going. You think the HR people at reps who are trying to help leaderships, etc. If you can give the skill set to people, we can then change dramatically the way we work and live, I believe.
I think there may have been, Grant, there may have been these automatic responses or reactions, almost a reflex for a lot of folks who've been through a lot of change in life, where they just have this epiphany that goes, that's what it is. I can't change it. I'm going to have to live with it. And then you start to figure through that. And those of us who think of things that way have lower empathy for the rest of the team potentially when they're having difficulty processing it.
Absolutely. As I jumped into my doctorate, the doctorate really discovered, I created a new model, which will come out in a later book as well, on leadership. And I touched just a little bit on the importance of transformational leadership versus transactional leadership. And what you said, Mark, is so important, because if I look over the spectrum of leaders and the different leadership styles, there are those who lack that empathy ability and just think, well, this is the process. I'm leading. You should follow what I'm doing. When truthfully, If you function and work and adopt the transformational leadership theory, it's harder, but you're working alongside the employee. You take your jacket off first, you sit down with them, you utilize coaching as your main tool of choice and your main tool to leverage development, growth, understanding, and facilitate meeting. Then you are a truly different type of leader and people will follow you. And that's where people grow. And at the end of the day, what do you want to leave behind? Do you want to leave behind, great, we hit all of our numbers? Or do you want to leave behind, wow, not only did we hit our numbers, we transformed and elevated 62 people promoted in these different positions, are going in different ways and directions in the company, and lives have changed. I choose the latter. But it's a choice, right, of what we'd like to do.
And it's harder.
It is harder.
Yeah, it's harder if you want to, sometimes that lack of empathy, which I may actually have in some instances, because for me, it's just easier at times to know if this is already decided, got it, let's just get on with it. Let's just figure out what to do. And I know there's going to be pain and there's going to be all those things. In some ways, before this conversation, I may have thought for the teams that I'd be running or the clients I'm coaching, that's easier for them to operate that way as well, just to go, listen, this is immovable. So let's just accept it like I would, have a cup of coffee and just get on. But not everybody operates that way. And what I really like about this conversation is even using the commission one, which would be probably one of the harder ones to communicate. Maybe the idea is when you take off your jacket, sit down and say, listen, I understand that, this isn't news you would want or I would want. But I think our game plan now has to be, let's roll up our sleeves and go, what do we have to do together in your sales territory this year to make you better or the same or better than last year? So what are we going to do differently? And let's work on that together. And by the way, there may be some things that as a sales leader of 140 people, David could help with, like marketing or inbound leads or product support or new product offerings and all those other things. So even the fact that you're trying to roll up the sleeves and help, I think shows some sort of empathy where the team feels like you're trying to try help get them through that, which probably goes a long way.
And that's where the so what comes into play. That's so critical what you just said, because again, as a leader, do I want to be seen as I told you what to do, or do I want to be seen as I'm helping you through this and we're going to make this, you have a choice to work here or not. You can go work anywhere else. I'd rather you stay here. We've invested time and energy in you. And often what you find and what we found in rolling out the new compensation plan was people had better ideas. And while the compensation portion was directed by the board, what we need to do differently so that we can all earn higher compensation came from the ideas of those discussions in the so what discussions. And as a leader, if I'm going to be that tunnel vision, narrow-minded, I'm just going to roll it out and you have to deal with it, that's fine. That's one way of leading and it may work for you or for other people. That's great. However, I want the ideas that come from the people. We hire people because they're smarter than I am. I hire people because they're excellent at what they do. This is their chosen profession as well, too, not just mine. And if we work together, that's what so what can do. It helps you to create an organized thought process that we can all action and follow. And then again, as the supervisor, I know if everybody's on board or not.
Yeah.
We don't ask that. If we just rolled out sales compensation restructuring the old way without scared so what, it would have been an organizational change model and it would be dictatorial. And here's what's going to happen. I would lose out on a lot of creativity or thought process or innovation on what we're doing today versus what we could do tomorrow to help everybody grow. And I think that if my role is to lead sales transformation and then focus again, is it sales change? Change, if I'm just doing change management, that means it can go back to the way it was. If I'm doing sales transformation, we won't go back. There's no going backwards.
Yeah, you're burning the boats.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, bad analogy given the picture behind you. But
I get it.
Given the no reference to Royal Caribbean in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you.
Hey, Grant. One. Just given our time, we'd talk for hours. Given our druthers here, tell me a little more about the academic approach to sales management, that curriculum that you went through after kind of stepping through the fire and making that courageous decision. Tell me about a little bit about the curriculum and some of the things that were the biggest epiphanies for you. Where did it really change your understanding of sales reality?
Mhm. Well, the curriculum from the master's program, which was, again, mine was on leading sales transformation, focused heavily on how do we lead, what is leadership, what is leadership values and principles for sales, what is change management for sales. And then we got into where the money makers really truly are and what the differentiation is between account management and how do you process account management as well too into the broader spectrum. I learned so much more there that I had never known, nor had I not gone into the program, I would have never been able to give to our account management teams. For example, from the aspects of what we built in true account management, we learned the in-depth series of questions, questioning, understanding, changing the focus on the relationship planning with our account management team. I give you just a quick example. In typical account management planning on Mondays, which are the setup days, you spend about 45 minutes to an hour making your agendas and making your preparations to go forward of what you're going to do for your accounts for the week.
Mm-hmm.
But when do you do it with the actual account?
Exactly.
And when could you get rid of those agendas and actually start using the positive sales mindsets versus the negative mindsets? This is where the psychology of sales comes into play. It's harder to get out of the negative mindsets. But it's much more advantageous if you're in the positives, in authenticity, client centricity, proactive creativity, tactful audacity, everything that's inside Dr. Philip Squire's book on selling transformed. Mm-hmm. That was the foundational point for us, and it was our true aha moment. And how do we build out the sales academy for Royal Caribbean International Sales? And we had to change the psychology of how we believed in sales and how we should change our own behaviors. So this was very different from any other sales academic program. It was deep into the heart of selling, the science behind it, the account management ways of it, which leads into business development, sales support, sales enablement, all the aspects of sales. And then what is your foundation and what should it be from? It should be from the positive mindsets in the way customers want to be sold to. Now, let me tell you this. There was a part of me in the master's program, I didn't believe it. And I thought, oh, this is great. This is fine. I'm just going to go through and get the master's. There's this early part. And then this is before I did the change model. After the master's program, obviously I believed it in depth, but I still wanted to prove it. And I thought, this doesn't apply to our sales professionals or the cruise industry. So in order for me to get that out of my mind as a sales leader and truly know, does this work or not? I had an outside consultancy go and interview 160 of Europe, Middle East, and Africa travel agents. Wow. That were our travel agents that we worked with. And in there, the outside company asked them series of questions tied back to the sales mindsets that Dr. Fell created in the master's program. And oddly enough, all of the interviews came back and said that less than 10% of salespeople are effective at their jobs. And I thought, well, where have I heard this before? In the sales master's program, as evidenced by the master's program. And we asked them, we said, what do you do when the account manager hangs up the phone or leaves your office? I said, do you really want to know? Yeah, we don't work for you. You think we work for you, but we don't. We're our own company. We're our own entity. We're our own philosophy. We're our own people. But the old consultative ways of selling means that you're going to come up and interrupt our day and think that you're going to make our day, we're the end all be all product and services, and then you leave. And we're just supposed to be left going, oh, this is magical and wonderful. And it wasn't just about Royal Caribbean. This was just in theory from travel agencies, but that's what came through. But we went out after we applied this and put this into play and say, how are we doing now? And say, you're truly unique. You're unique in your sales approach now. Now you're treating us as a customer, and now we see the value behind you. We see the sales education, the ethics, what you stand for, and you're aligned with us. And so that's why we're much more willing to work with you. And I thought, okay, well, I couldn't prove it any more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're working for us.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that in that initial model, the individual leaves and the people are saying, hey, does Mark think we're working for him?
Yeah.
The reality is Mark's working for you to help you run a better business and a better travel agency and achieve your outcomes. And hopefully we've got a way of enabling that and figuring that out.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't. And if that's the truth, that's okay too. Let's have that conversation.
But let's be honest together on the journey.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. And then that's where, you know, you asked me about the curriculum, the winning value proposition, tools and processes and ways of thinking on account management. That completely changed the whole bar for us. Taking the whole conversation and flipping it over as an account manager, what is my role to do? My role is not only to help my company grow, but my first priority is to help you grow. Because when I understand your needs, your guidance, your principles, what did your boss say you have to do this week? We never used to ask those questions. Now we do all the time. What are your targets that you need to approach for this week? What's the mission for you? What is keeping you up at night? What do your customers say they want? I might happen to have it back here with this beautiful ship that help you, but I might not. And that's okay. I'm so authentic in my sales process that if I don't have what you need, I'm not going to force it onto you.
Exactly.
But I'm going to be here when you want to come back.
Right. And the interesting thing about professional sales is that whole philosophy isn't new. And it was, you know, probably commercially made available in 1935 with Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's about them. It's about them. It's not about you.
It's true.
So the more you know about them, the better position you're going to be in to figure out if you can help them. But today, what is the interesting thing, what to me is still interesting about professional sales, is the 40-year-old stereotype still exists. We still have thousands of people going into this profession, and their first line manager is teaching them to pitch and cajole and to have the veneer.
Oh, I see it. I see it all the time on LinkedIn and etc. You know, what are your pitch? Here's the 3 tips. Here's the tricks. You've got to do this, 7 tips. And I thought, when are we going to teach people to just be themselves? Relationship planning.
Can you imagine LinkedIn trying to teach anybody to do anything important that's a profession? You know, how to do laser eye surgery or 3 tips on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
I'm not going
Hey, buy the laser. I just lived through laser eye surgery. I don't want somebody learning how to do that from LinkedIn. I have no idea who I'm talking to right now. It did, even a professional, it didn't work that well.
Yeah.
So can you imagine anything that mattered? But for some reason, everybody goes, I'm going to grab the soundbite tip that's going to make me a quote unquote professional salesperson.
Yeah.
The key takeaway, team, here a couple of things. First of all, here's an epiphany. If you're doing account planning, do it with your client.
Can you imagine that?
Share it with them. What am I going to do? Come into David and say, listen, I think I'm going to sell 500K with Royal Caribbean this year. Here's what we're going to do. And David go, man, what a great plan. You two don't make those decisions. David and I don't make those decisions.
Exactly. It's much deeper than that.
How about sitting down with the client saying, listen, you know, this is what we were thinking of doing in terms of trying to help you run a better business. You know, and does this translate? Is this a value? So just doing some of that proper planning with a client, I think is just a critical takeaway for everybody here.
Even flipping this perspective, start asking your accounts, what do they want to be famous for this year? What is their vision? What are their goals? And
great phrasing.
Do we even align?
Yeah.
You know, when you think about account prioritization, which we learned in the masters as well too, who do I go for? You know, revenue management is going to say, here's our sale this week, go out to everybody. But as a sales professional, my role is to be that buffer between revenue management and the customer. So who am I going to go to? Yeah. You know, if I'm not going to know who to go to if I don't start asking the right questions and find out what the accounts want to be famous for themselves.
Yeah. What do you want to be famous for? I love that phrasing of that question. What do you want to be famous for this year? That's
David's thinking about it. I see it across his face.
David, what do you want to be famous for this year?
Just to meet my numbers. That's the thing that I would like to do for the organization and bring a lot of value for sure. And maybe ask some of these questions that Grant's talking about, and getting our team to be asking those questions, because, when you laid it out that way, Grant, sounds pretty easy in a way, like to just have that conversation, to be yourself and not worrying about all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just that little bit of prep time that you need. And it sounds like you've got all the frameworks that can really help a lot of people out. So I'm looking forward to that.
Very good. Very good. Happy to share.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest utility I think I ever got in sales was not the biggest deal. The greatest utility I get in sales is working with a client who absolutely loves us.
Yeah.
I would do it for free.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't, but I would do it for free. But there's some mouths to feed in here, so we can't do that.
Some may question your motive there, but
yeah, that's right. But literally, when the joy of working with a client who loves us because of what we did for them or their business or their team or whatever is so high. And so when we ask our teams, what do you want to be famous for? Planting that seed of saying, could you develop 3 accounts that are just insane zealots for our company?
Yeah.
If we could do that, the joy we would get out of what we did, if they were some of our top 3 clients, the joy they would get out of what they do every day would become contagious. And by the way, they have them. They're in there.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just how do you foster and find those and polish them out? Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, Grant, we're going to have you back for sure.
Oh, thank you.
And we have lots and lots and lots more questions for you. And maybe we have you and Philip at the same time on one of these in the future, which would be great fun. And I'm going over to the annual event for Consalia next year in London. Maybe David will come with me, and we'll do a few podcasts from
together
there.
In person. I hope to be there as well too.
Yeah, we can do a couple of podcasts from there. But as people want to learn more about you and the upcoming book, Transforming Sales Management, Leading Sales Teams Through Change, how do they find it? How do they learn more about you?
I've made it very easy. You just go to scaredsowhat.com. It's just as simple as it sounds. Scared, SCARED, sowhat.com. There you can find the model is available to your point where you just said a while ago. I am making it free for everybody.
Wow.
So the model is free for every individual to take and partake and to use. There is a quiz that they can download and take the quiz over and over for any change process they have. David, you can use it for your team members as well too. That way you can say, show me your results and let's have a conversation together, right? And there's also a template, a so what template. Now, these are available for everybody to use. Information about the book is there as well too. And also prior academic publishing is there. I am making Scared So What into an app, and it will release at the same time as the book in May. And this, again, the app for individuals will be available for free for everyone to download and use from their app store or Android, whatever they need. And then for corporations, we will unlock a whole list of other features that will be able to help showcase them how to do sales and change management within their organization for them. So some great tools are there. Everything's at scaredsowhat.com.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Grant. What a pleasure meeting you today. This won't be the last time we interact for sure.
I hope not. You guys are amazing. Thank you.
David Fauser, he's right. You're amazing. Thank you so much.
You guys are amazing too. But I gotta just again, as somebody who looked at this over the past couple of days, Grant, I gotta really say it's methodical, it's thorough, and it's worthwhile. So I would really, really highly recommend anybody listening to this to take a look at some of your tools. I think they're fantastic.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That means that we did something right.
You did something right, sir. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
And thank you both for joining today. And folks, thank all of you for listening. As you know, with the Selling Well, the reason we do this is we are trying to share strategies, processes, tools, best practices to, first of all, increase the professionalism of B2B sales today. And then secondly, to improve the lives of salespeople. So thank you for listening. We hope you got a few things that were helpful here today. And if you did, please like and subscribe to the Selling Well podcast and tell your friends. And if you didn't, if there's something that we can do to improve the Selling Well podcast, I want to know. And we love constructive criticism. So you can send an email to me, Mark Cox, at inthefunnel.com. I check that email and I want to hear your tips. Until then, keep selling well, and we'll look forward to hearing from you on the next Selling Well podcast. Hey, David. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. I mean, that was a really good interview and really interesting. And, authentically, I am actually really looking forward to this book that he's got coming out, because it seems like he's going to be looking at change from multiple perspectives. And as somebody that would just enjoy learning about all these different models and then getting into his model would be just, I think, a rich experience throughout the entire book. So really interesting gentleman, Dr. Grant, and I look forward to seeing his book for sure. What did you think about it?
Well, I think the key message I completely agree. And I think the key message for me is here's a guy who's running a large sales organization with Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines. He gets asked to write a manual for the entire sales organization. If it was me 20 years ago, I know immediately I would have started writing that manual. Mm-hmm. Instead, he does the smart thing and gets coaching to say, hey, listen, why don't you go take formal education in sales? Mm-hmm. It's only really offered over in the, in this program in the UK for formal master's work. He goes and does it. Look how it changed his life. Mm-hmm. Now he's still in the role, but he's running an organization. He's got a book coming out. That's the message, I think, for everybody listening to this podcast is trigger that growth orientation. And if this is the profession you love, invest in yourself. Start by, first of all, thanks for listening to the podcast. Start by reading the books. Send us a note. We'll send you our favorite books. Continue that lifelong learning. And it just opens up so many doors, that growth orientation. And I'll be the first to say, David, you know me personally now. I'm not perfect either. I don't have perfect growth orientation. I have those great days and those rough days just like everybody else. But I'll say a true joy in my life is learning. And the more I learn, the more I understand how much I don't know, even about sales.
Totally agree, Mark. One of the things that really stuck out to me in this interview specifically was when he said that he thought he knew everything already. Mm-hmm. And then he went on the course and it opened his mind and really changed his life, his career and his life. And so, I mean, I think that for a lot of people, including myself, like for me to go do a master's at this point in my life or a doctorate at this point in my life, with a family and all these things going on, probably is not in my cards right now, although I would love to do it. But I understand, I was doing a bit of research myself just on what's out there, but I understand that you have a pretty decent sales management master's program that you're going to be running this year yourself. Maybe can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, super quick. We're just doing a masterclass because we have so many people like you who are running large sales organizations. I think at times they feel isolated. The executive team doesn't really understand sales. They've got a lot of challenges with this constant pace of change. Quotas go up. The investment in the sales organization goes down. Expectations are super high. Churn is higher than it's ever been before. We just came out of COVID. We're going into 8 to 10% inflation. Sales leaders need a life raft. They need a community of folks where they can jump in, get some information on best practices. And at the core, that's kind of what we do. We end up processing everything out there and trying to be the Siri, if you will, the Google to break down what's most important that we can apply to our businesses and our teams today. But some of the magic that ends up happening, Dave, is just, 15 different people from 15 different industries running 15 different sales organizations, sharing what they're doing and learning from each other.
I know a lot of my sales guys that have been through your public sessions have come back and said, you know what, it's really interesting. The problems that we think are unique to us are not unique to us. Right. So, and I think that does help them a little bit see things from a different lens. And
it does. It does. And your team's always fantastic in these ones. And they do walk in thinking, hey, refrigeration, industrial refrigeration, what does that have to do with a SaaS model? What does that have to do with a services business? What does that have to do with financial planning? And guess what? It's all the same. We actually have to create new opportunities. We have to add value and insight in our interactions with clients and prospects. We have to help them make better decisions. We have to help them along that journey and that curve. And we have to compete and win in a very competitive industry. It's the same for everybody. There are there's context and some idiosyncrasies. So yeah, that's we're starting that up again in January and lots of folks who listen to the podcast, that you just go to the website to find out about that, inthefunnel.com. But we're really excited. We've got a great class brewing for it. And I know the joy of doing it again. I learn a lot in these things too. We bring up some discussion points and we see where it takes us. Thanks for mentioning that, David. That's our last plug for today. And we're going to see you all next time on the Selling Well podcast, and a real sincere hope that everybody hearing this has a happy, healthy, and most importantly, a fun 2023 as our first podcast of 2023. Our sincere wishes, sending good vibes to everybody listening to this. Thanks, David. We'll see you next time.